The zipper of the tent rasped like a confession in the dead of night, and there she was, Margot, slipping inside with the grace of someone who had long ago learned to move through shadows without a sound. "Eliana," she whispered, her voice a threadbare veil over the storm we both pretended wasn't brewing. "The rain's coming down like judgment, and your mother's tent is full of ghosts tonight." In that instant, as the first drops hammered the nylon above us like accusations, I felt the world shrink to the space between our sleeping bags, where the air thickened with everything we could never say back home in Willow Creek. The camping trip had started as one of those forced rituals my mother, Lorraine, clung to like a lifeline. 3 days in the Cascades, Oregon's backbone of evergreens and secrets, to stitch our fraying family back together after Dad's latest vanishing act. Willow Creek was the kind of town where the mills had rusted shut a generation ago, leaving behind clapboard houses sagging under the weight of unpaid mortgages and unspoken regrets. Mom worked double shifts at the diner on Main Street, serving coffee to loggers who tipped in pity, while I scraped by at the community college in Bend, studying environmental science because it promised a way out, a map to somewhere the air didn't taste like pine and pretense. Margot had been Mom's anchor since high school, the one who stayed when everyone else scattered like leaves in a November gale. She was 42 now, a real estate agent who peddled overpriced cabins to city folk fleeing Portland's grind, her life a polished veneer over the divorce that had left her with a son in Seattle, and a house too big for echoes. We'd pitched camp by Mirror Lake, the water so still it held the stars like a promise we all wanted to believe. The first evening, as the sun dipped behind the peaks, Mom had cracked open a bottle of cheap Merlot, her laughter brittle as she recounted old stories, how she and Margot had skipped prom to drive to the coast, windows down, wind whipping their secrets into the Pacific foam. I sat on a stump, poking at the fire with a stick, watching Margot across the flames. She had that effortless poise, her dark hair pulled into a loose braid, eyes the color of storm clouds over the Siskiyous. There was something in the way she looked at me that night, a lingering glance that skipped like a stone across the lake's surface, rippling everything it touched. By morning the routine settled in. Hikes along overgrown trails where ferns brushed our calves like forgotten whispers, lunches of peanut butter sandwiches eaten under the canopy, Mom's voice fading into lectures about resilience, about how Willow Creek girls didn't break, they bent. Margot walked beside me more often than not, her steps syncing with mine without effort, pointing out Devil's Club bushes or the faint tracks of a black bear. "You see that?" she'd say, her finger tracing the indent in the mud. "It's all about following the signs, Eliana, even when the path twists back on itself." I nodded, my throat tight, because her words felt like they were meant for more than wildlife. That second afternoon we crested a ridge overlooking a valley carpeted in huckleberry bushes, the air sweet with their bruised promise. Mom lagged behind, her boots scuffing the earth as she grumbled about her blisters, leaving Margot and me to claim the high ground. We sat on a fallen log, backs to the wind, sharing a thermos of coffee that had gone lukewarm. "Your mother's always been the strong one," Margot said, her gaze fixed on the horizon where the mountains folded into one another like lovers reluctant to part. "But strength like that comes at a cost. Locks you in places you never meant to stay." I shifted, the bark rough against my palms, and for the first time, I let myself really look at her. Not as Mom's shadow friend, but as Margot, the woman who had shown up at my high school graduation with a necklace of polished agate, whispering that it was for the girl who dreamed of oceans instead of sawdust. "And you?" I asked, my voice smaller than the space between us. "What locks you in?" She turned then, her eyes meeting mine with a weight that pressed the breath from my lungs, and in that suspended moment, the valley below us hummed with the unspoken. The years she'd spent playing the part of the perfect divorcee, the dinners with men who never stayed the night, the way her hand sometimes brushed Mom's in photographs from better days. Dinner that night was trout grilled over open coals, the fish flaking under our forks as the sky bruised purple. Mom dominated the conversation, her stories veering into the town's latest scandals, the preacher's wife running off with the mill owner's son, the way folks whispered about those Portland types bringing their rainbow flags to the county fair. "Standards matter, Eliana," she said, jabbing her fork for emphasis. "In Willow Creek you hold the line, or you lose everything." Margot smiled faintly, passing the salt, but her foot nudged mine under the picnic table, a fleeting pressure that sent heat coiling up my leg like smoke from the dying embers. Sleep came fitful that night, the tent's walls glowing faintly with moonlight filtering through the branches. I lay awake, replaying the day in fragments, The curve of Margot's neck as she bent to tie her laces, the low timbre of her laugh when Mom tripped over a root. It was innocent, I told myself, the kind of pull that happens in close quarters, amplified by the wilderness's indifference. But when the storm rolled in around midnight, thunder cracking like a judge's gavel, rain sheeting down in relentless sheets, innocence shattered with the wind's howl. Margot's zipper was the first sound that pierced the chaos, followed by the rustle of her sleeping bag as she crawled in, water dripping from her poncho. Mom's tent was a sodden island 50 yards away, but she'd insisted on soloing it, claiming the fresh air cured her insomnia. "I can't stay out there," Margot murmured, zipping the flap shut against the onslaught. "It's flooding." She settled inches away, our bodies parallel like lines drawn too close on a map, the air between us charged with the scent of wet earth and her faint lavender soap. We didn't speak at first, just listened to the tempest rage, the tent poles creaking under the assault. My heart hammered, a wild thing caged, and I wondered if she could hear it over the downpour. Then, softly, as if testing the waters, her hand found mine in the dark, a brush of knuckles, tentative, then deliberate. "Eliana," she said again, her breath warm against my shoulder. "Have you ever felt like you're living someone else's life?" The question hung there, heavy as the rain, and I turned toward her, our faces illuminated in flashes of lightning. Her expression a map of quiet desperation, mine a mirror of the same. In that charged silence, with the world dissolving outside, I squeezed her hand back. It was a small act, a tether in the flood, but it unraveled everything. The careful compartments I'd built around my desires, the ones labeled "not here, not now, not with her." Margot's thumb traced a slow circle on my palm, and the touch ignited something primal, a spark that leaped the chasm of years and roles. We lay there, hands entwined, as the storm peaked and broke, neither of us pulling away, both knowing this was the point where paths diverged, where mistakes bloomed into inevitabilities. Morning brought a fragile truce, the ground sodden and the lake swollen, mirroring the unease churning in my gut. Mom emerged from her tent with a forced cheer, brewing coffee over a hissing camp stove, oblivious or willfully blind to the shift in the air. "Rough night, huh?" she said, handing us mugs, her eyes skimming over the shared tent without lingering. Margot thanked her smoothly, her voice steady as she recounted the flood, but when our gazes met over the steam there was a flicker, a shared secret etched in the steam's curl. The day unfolded in uneasy rhythms, a short hike to a waterfall that cascaded like spilled mercury, the mist cloaking us in temporary veils. Mom led, chattering about the town's annual lumberjack days, how it kept Willow Creek's spirit alive amid the decay. Margot and I trailed, our steps measured, the space between us a live wire. At the pool below the falls, where the water pooled deep and green, Mom stripped to her shorts and plunged in, whooping like a girl half her age. "Come on, you two, don't be prudes." Margot waded in after her, the cold shocking a laugh from her lips, but I hung back on the rocks, sketching the spray in my notebook, the pencil strokes sharp with the night's residue. When she surfaced, water streaming from her braid, she called my name softly, her eyes pleading across the froth. I joined them eventually, the chill biting my skin, but it was her submerged hand that found my ankle underwater. A graze gone in an instant, yet it lingered like a brand. Lunch was silent sandwiches by the shore, the bread gone soggy, mirroring the mood. Mom dozed against a tree afterward, her snores a rhythmic denial, leaving Margot and me to pack the gear. Our hands brushed over a coiled rope, and this time neither flinched. "Last night," she began, her voice low, folding a tarp with deliberate care. "It wasn't just the storm, was it?" I shook my head, the admission sticking in my throat like burrs. She stepped closer, the scent of damp pine clinging to her, and cupped my cheek with a palm roughened by years of open houses and empty promises. "I've watched you grow into this fierce, quiet force, Eliana. And God help me, I see parts of myself in you, the parts one buried to fit." Her lips met mine then, soft and searching, tasting of river water and regret. It was brief, a stolen breath in the midday hush, but it sealed us into complicity. When Mom stirred, we parted like actors dropping character, the tarp between us a flimsy prop. The afternoon blurred into chores, filtering lake water, tallying supplies, Mom's voice a distant hum as she planned the drive home. But beneath it all, the pull intensified, a current dragging us toward the unspoken edge. That evening, as the sun bled orange across the peaks, we circled the fire one last time. Mom uncorked the last of the wine, her cheeks flushing with the warmth, launching into a toast to family, the kind that chooses you. Margot raised her cup, her eyes on me, the flames dancing in their depths like unspoken vows. I sipped, the bitterness curling on my tongue, wondering how long we could pretend this interlude was just a detour. A whisper swallowed by the woods. Night fell heavy, the tent a cocoon once more. But this time the air hummed with anticipation rather than storm. Margot entered without preamble. Her sleeping bag unrolled beside mine as if it had always belonged there. We lay facing each other in the dark, breath sinking like tides, her fingers tracing the line of my jaw. "Tell me about your dreams," she murmured, her voice a velvet invitation. I spoke haltingly, of leaving Willow Creek for Portland's pulse, of studying forests that didn't choke on their own history, of loving without the town's judgmental gaze. She listened, her hand slipping to the nape of my neck, drawing me closer until our foreheads touched, the world narrowing to the rhythm of her pulse against mine. When our lips met again, it was unhurried, a deepening exploration that peeled back layers of hesitation. Her kiss held the weight of deferred longings, a quiet rebellion against the scripts we'd both inherited. My hands found the curve of her waist, the fabric of her shirt a thin barrier, and in that tangle of limbs and whispers, we crossed the line, not with haste, but with the solemnity of sinners at an altar. It was tender, fervent, a communion that bound us in the night's vast indifference, her sighs mingling with the rustle of leaves overhead. Afterward we lay entwined, the afterglow of fragile shelter. "This changes nothing," she whispered, though we both knew it changed everything. The easy camaraderie with Mom, the facade of Willow Creek's normalcy, the invisible chains of expectation. Sleep claimed us eventually, her arm draped across my hip like a promise, but dawn brought the reckoning, the tent's zipper a harbinger once more. The drive back to Willow Creek unfolded under a sky scrubbed clean by the storm, the cascades receding in the rearview like a dream half remembered. Mom hummed along to the radio's classic rock station, her fingers drumming the wheel, oblivious to the charged silence in the back seat where Margot and I sat, knees inches apart, the ghost of last night's touches lingering like dew on skin. Every pothole jolted us closer, a reminder of the fragility we'd shattered, and I stared out at the passing firs, their needles a blurred green testament to secrets kept in plain sight. Home was a squat ranch house on Elm Street, paint peeling like old regrets, the porch light flickering against the dusk. Mom bustled inside first, calling over her shoulder about laundry and shifts starting at dawn, leaving Margot and me to unload the gear from the truck bed. Our hands brushed over a cooler, the contact electric, and she paused, her eyes searching mine with a mix of hunger and fear. "Eliana," she said, voice pitched low against the neighbor's distant lawnmower, "we need to talk about this, about us." But the screen door banged open, Mom's silhouette framed in the light, and the moment dissolved into chores, the duffels thudding onto the driveway like anchors. Dinner was takeout from the diner. Greasy burgers wrapped in wax paper, eaten around the scarred oak table that had witnessed every family fracture. Mom dominated, recounting the trip's highlights with exaggerated flair. The bear tracks, the waterfall plunge, how the rain had washed away the year's bad luck. Margot nodded along, her fork tracing patterns in her coleslaw, but her foot found mine under the table again, a subtle press that sent warmth spiraling up my spine. I forced a laugh at Mom's punchline, the sound hollow, guilt gnawing at the edges like termites in the floorboards. Afterward, as Mom crashed early with a migraine from the drive, Margot lingered in the kitchen, drying dishes with methodical strokes. I leaned against the counter, the fluorescent hum overhead amplifying the tension. "What now?" I asked, the words escaping before I could cage them. She set the towel down, stepping into my space with the quiet authority of someone who had navigated worse betrayals. "Now we figure it out." Quietly. Because if Lorraine knew. Her sentence trailed into the sink's drip, the implication heavy. The end of lifelong bonds, the town's millstone of judgment, the unraveling of everything stable in our orbits. She pulled me into the pantry then, the door clicking shut behind us, shelves of canned goods pressing at our backs. Her kiss was urgent this time, laced with the desperation of stolen time, her hands framing my face as if memorizing contours. I melted into it, my fingers threading through her hair, the faint taste of salt from unshed tears on her lips. It was reckless, the house creaking around us like a watchful elder, but in that narrow darkness we carved out a pocket of defiance, a whispered litany of names, hers against my collarbone, mine buried in the hollow of her throat. We parted with flushed cheeks and averted eyes when Mom's footsteps padded down the hall, Margot slipping out the back door with excuses about an early listing in Bend. I watched her taillights fade down Elm Street, the night air cool against my heated skin, and wondered how long we could sustain this clandestine rhythm before the notes soured. The weeks that followed blurred into a delicate dance of proximity and restraint. Willow Creek's summer sweltered, the air thick with the scent of drying hay and distant wildfires, mirroring the slow burn building between us. Mom's shift stretched longer, her exhaustion a veil that granted us stolen hours. Coffee runs where Margot's car idled in the diner's lot, her hand on my thigh as we talked about everything and nothing. Her failed marriage to a man who collected resentments like stamps, my aborted attempts at dating boys from the college quad who felt like echoes of expectation. One muggy afternoon, she picked me up from a shift at the local bookstore, the bell above the door tinkling like a warning. We drove out to the old logging roads beyond town, gravel crunching under tires, the forest swallowing us whole. Parked amid the ferns, engine ticking cool, she turned to me with eyes shadowed by unspoken burdens. I think about you all the time, Eliana. In the quiet moments when the houses I show feel like prisons disguised as homes. Her confession cracked something open in me, and I leaned across the console, our kiss deepening into exploration, buttons undone in the humid cab, breaths fogging the windows like secrets veiled. It was in these interludes that the world felt expansive again, the cascades echo in our touches, the lake's mirror in her gaze. She taught me the language of longing, her fingers mapping paths I'd only dreamed of, her voice a murmur of encouragement against my uncertainties. "You're allowed this," she'd say, post-climax glow painting her features soft. "You're allowed to want." And in those affirmations I glimpsed a future untethered from Willow Creek's grasp, where love wasn't a transaction of survival, but a wild, unapologetic bloom. Yet the undercurrent of dread never fully receded. Mom noticed the shifts, the way my smiles came easier, my silences less brooding, but attributed them to the trip's afterglow, or perhaps the boy from the hardware store who'd asked me out. "Finally loosening up, kiddo," she'd tease over breakfast, oblivious to the irony. Margot played her part flawlessly. The concerned friend dropping by with casseroles, her hugs lingering a beat too long when Mom turned away, her texts arriving at odd hours with innocuous queries laced with double meanings. The fracture came subtly, like a fault line spiderwebbing under pressure. It was late August, the county fair in full swing, booths hawking funnel cakes and blue ribbon jams, the air electric with Ferris wheel lights and laughter that masked the town's underbelly. Mom insisted we go as a trio, a nostalgic nod to girlhood rituals, and Margot agreed with feigned enthusiasm. Amid the Midway's chaos as Mom queued for cotton candy, Margot pulled me behind a game tent, the barker's call drowning our urgency. Our kiss there was fevered, hands roaming under the cover of shadows, but a voice sliced through. "Eliana? That you?" It was Tessa, an old classmate from Willow Creek High, her arm linked with her fiancé's, eyes widening in that small-town calculus of gossip fodder. She recovered with a smile, but the damage lingered in her parting glance, a seed planted in fertile soil. Margot and I rejoined Mom seamlessly, but the evening soured, the rides blurring into nausea, the fireworks overhead exploding like warnings. That night, alone in my room with the window cracked to the cricket chorus, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Saw you with Margot at the fair. Careful, girl." Lorraine's like family to her. Anonymity cloaked malice, but the intent pierced clean. I deleted it, heart pounding, and drove to Margot's under cover of moonless sky, her house a beacon on the outskirts, porch swing creaking empty. She met me at the door, concern etching her brow, and pulled me inside to the living room's dim lamplight, the space cluttered with listing flyers and half-read novels. "What happened?" she asked, drawing me onto the couch, her arms a harbor. I spilled it all, the text, the fear, the suffocating web of Willow Creek's vigilance. She held me through the tears, her chin resting on my crown, murmuring assurances that felt increasingly threadbare. "We'll weather it," she said, but her voice wavered, the first hint of the storm we'd invited. As summer waned, the stolen moments grew riskier, laced with the thrill of transgression. We'd meet at the abandoned mill on the river's bend, its skeletal beams a cathedral for our rights, blankets spread on weathered planks, the water's rush muffling our cries. There, in the dappled light filtering through rotted roofs, Margot shared fragments of her hidden self, The college fling with a woman in Eugene that had terrified her into silence. The years of performative heterosexuality that left her hollow. I chose safety over soul, she confessed one twilight, her head in my lap, fingers toying with a loose thread on my jeans. But with you, Eliana, I feel alive again. Like the girl who drove to the coast without a map. Those revelations bound us tighter, our love making a defiant sacrament, bodies entwined in the fading day. Yet each parting carried the weight of potential discovery, a shadow lengthening with the equinox. Mom's suspicions simmered unspoken. She'd eye Margot's visits with a furrowed brow, comment on my glow with a mix of pride and probe. Something's got you lit up, El Spill. I'd deflect with laughs, but the lies accumulated like autumn leaves, brittle underfoot. October arrived with chill winds stripping the maples bare, mirroring the exposure creeping into our world. A school friend buzzed on cheap beer at a bonfire party. Let slip a rumor. Eliana and that realtor lady, thick as thieves. And by Monday, whispers followed me through the college halls. Margot fielded calls from mutual acquaintances, her voice steel over the line. Mind your business. But the pressure mounted, a vice tightening around our fragile idol. It climaxed on a rain-lashed evening, Mom cornering me in the kitchen as thunder grumbled outside. What's going on with you and Margot? She demanded, her face pale under the overhead light, arms crossed like barriers. I froze, dish soap sudsing forgotten in the sink, the air thick with the scent of simmering stew. What do you mean? I managed, but my voice cracked, betraying the fault lines. She stepped closer, eyes searching mine with a hurt that predated us both. I've seen the looks, the way you two orbit each other. She's my best friend, Eliana. My sister in all but blood. If there's something. Her words trailed, the unspoken wrong hanging like smoke. Panic surged, mingled with defiance, and I lashed out. Maybe it's not about you, Mom. Maybe it's about me finally feeling something real. The slap of her hand against the counter echoed, not at me, but at the chasm widening between us. She turned away then, shoulders slumping, the fight draining like water down the drain. Just don't break us, kiddo. We've got so little left. I fled to my room, the doors click a hollow victory, and texted Margot in the dark. She knows something. We need to end this. Her reply came swift. No. Come over. Please. The drive to her place was a blur of wipers slashing rain, the road slick as my resolve. She opened the door drenched in lamplight, pulling me into an embrace that smelled of chamomile tea and desperation. We can't stop, she pleaded over mugs at her kitchen island, her hands trembling around the ceramic. Not when it's the first honest thing I've had in years. I argued about Mom's fragility, the town's teeth, the impossibility of us against the tide. But her kiss silenced the logic, drawing me upstairs to her bed, the sheets cool against fevered skin. There in the queen-sized expanse that had known only solitude, we surrendered fully, our union a tempest of limbs and whispers, chasing oblivion in each other's arms. Dawn found us tangled, her breath steady on my neck, but the interlude's end loomed like the sun cresting the blinds, a rude awakening to the consequences we'd deferred. November draped Willow Creek in gunmetal grays, the leaves long surrendered to gutters, the wind off the river carrying the bite of impending frost. Mom and I moved through the house like specters, our conversations clipped to essentials. Grocery lists pinned to the fridge, weather reports exchanged over lukewarm cereal. The chasm from that kitchen confrontation lingered, a frost between us, her glances laced with wounded incomprehension. I'd catch her staring at old photos on the mantel. Her and Margot arm in arm at a long-ago fair, grins wide as the sky, and the sight twisted something deep in my chest, a knot of loyalty warring with liberation. Margot became our fragile bridge, her visits a tightrope walk of normalcy. She'd arrive with pies from the bakery or flyers for open houses, her chatter filling the voids Mom left unfilled. But under the table her knee would press mine, a Morse code of endurance, her eyes holding mine with promises forged in the mill's ruins. One such evening, as Mom excused herself for a soak, Margot leaned close over decaf, her breath a warm current. I miss our escapes, she murmured, fingers grazing my wrist. The woods. They understood us. The invitation hung unspoken, and 2 nights later, we slipped away to a trailhead outside town, the moon a sliver guiding us into the pines. The air was crisp, scented with damp moss and decay. Our footsteps muffled on needle-carpeted paths. We found a clearing ringed by hemlocks, their branches a cathedral vault, and spread a blanket there, the ground yielding like forgiveness. Her hands undid my coat with reverence, our kisses slow and savoring, the cold sharpening every sensation, the slide of wool, the heat of skin, the hush of breath in the vast night. Lying afterward, stars pricking the canopy above, she traced constellations on my arm, her voice soft with vulnerability. When I was your age, Eliana, I thought love was a straight line boy meets girl, house, kids, the American script. But it bent me sideways, left me questioning every choice. I propped on an elbow, studying her profile limned in silver, the lines etched by compromises. And now? She turned, eyes luminous. Now you're the curve I didn't know I needed. The one that leads somewhere true. Those words anchored me through the days that followed, a talisman against the creeping isolation. At college, lectures on ecosystem resilience blurred into metaphors for our bond. How forests rebound from fire, roots intertwining underground to share strength. But Willow Creek's underbelly stirred. Tessa's whisper had blossomed into murmurs at the post office, sidelong looks at the co-op. Mom bore the brunt, her diner shifts met with pitying nods. Heard about your girl and that friend of yours, tough break. She'd come home drained, collapsing into the armchair with a sigh that carried the weight of communal betrayal. One frosty morning she confronted Margot directly, over coffee at the kitchen table while I pretended to sleep in. I overheard fragments through the floorboards. Mom's voice pitched low, accusatory. She's half your age, Marg. My daughter. What are you doing to us? Margot's response was measured, a diplomat's poise. Lorraine, it's not about taking. It's about finding what's been lost. The silence that followed stretched eternal, broken only by the clink of mugs, and when Margot left, the front door's click echoed like a verdict. She texted me later, your mom knows. Partially. We need to be careful. But caution felt like chains and our meeting shifted to riskier terrains. Her office after hours, blinds drawn against the street lamp's glare. The back seat of her car parked at scenic overlooks, windows steamed with urgency. Each encounter deepened the addiction, our bodies a language of rebuttal against the world's script, but the guilt festered, a slow poison. I'd lie awake post-tryst, Margot scent on my pillow, replaying Mom's weary eyes, the fracture I'd widened in the name of self. The holidays loomed like a guillotine. Thanksgiving a mandatory gathering at our house. Turkey brining in the fridge, Lorraine's tradition of forced festivity. Margot was invited by rote, her presence a powder keg. The meal unfolded in strained civility. Mom carving with mechanical precision, passing plates with smiles that didn't reach her eyes. Conversation skirted the edges, town gossip, weather woes, until the pie was served, candles guttering on the sill. Then, emboldened by a second glass of wine, Mom leaned forward, her fork clattering. Eliana's been distant lately. Changes, you know? Growing up too fast. Margot's hand stilled on her napkin, her gaze flicking to mine, a silent entreaty. Change isn't always loss, Lore, she said gently. Sometimes it's the start of something honest. The words landed like embers and Mom's face tightened, the air thickening with the unspoken indictment. I excused myself to the porch, the chill slapping my cheeks, and Margot followed minutes later, her coat draped over my shoulders. She's hurting because she loves you, she whispered, pulling me close against the railing. We all are. Our kiss there was desperate, flavored with cranberry and conflict, her hands framing my face as footsteps approached inside. We broke apart as Mom appeared in the doorway, her silhouette a sentinel. Everything okay out here? She asked, voice edged with steel. Margot stepped back, smoothing her sweater. Just clearing the air. The ambiguity hung, a truce or a threat, and the night dissolved into dishwashing and early beds, the house heavy with unsaid recriminations. Winter clamped down hard, snow blanketing Willow Creek in insulating white, muting the rumors to muffled echoes. But isolation amplified the internal tempests. Mom withdrew into longer shifts, her affection doled in terse notes left on the counter. Dinner and fridge. Love, Mom. I buried myself in finals, papers on climate migration that paralleled my own restless soul, but Margot remained the lodestar, our connection a vein of warmth in the freeze. We stole a weekend at a cabin she listed near Sisters, a rustic A-frame with a stone fireplace and views of snow-capped peaks. It was meant as respite, a bubble away from prying eyes, but arrival brought its own reckonings. As flames crackled, casting our shadows long across the pine walls, she unpacked not just groceries but ghosts. Photo albums from her marriage, faded snapshots of a life scripted in sepia. This was me playing the part, she said, flipping pages, her voice thick. But look here. She tapped a college shot, her arm around a woman with laughing eyes. This was real. Until fear won. I took the album, tracing the stranger's face, and felt the echo of our peril. What if fear wins again? I asked, the fire's pop underscoring the vulnerability. She set it aside, drawing me to the rug, her touch a rebuttal. Then we fight it together. That night unfolded in languid surrender, the cabin's isolation granting us hours of unhurried intimacy. Her lips charting my collarbone, my nails scoring her back in silent oaths. Dawn brought coffee by the window, watching snow sift down, and for a breath it felt sustainable. A life reimagined in embers and embrace. Returning to Willow Creek shattered the illusion. Mom had left a voicemail during the drive. We need to talk. Tonight. Her tone brooked no delay, and Margot dropped me at the curb with a kiss that tasted of farewell. Inside, the living room lamp burned low. Mom perched on the couch like a judge, a half-empty tea mug cooling on the side table. Where were you? She asked, not accusatory but weary beyond measure. I sank into the armchair, the springs groaning. With Margot. At a cabin. No use in prevarication. The truth had fermented too long. Her face crumpled, not in rage but in a grief that hollowed her cheeks. How long, Eliana? How long have you been? The ellipsis swallowed the label, the one Willow Creek would spit without mercy. Since the camping trip, I admitted, the words leaden. It started innocent, Mom. But it's real. She's real to me. She rose then, pacing to the window, frost etching patterns on the pane like fractured vows. She's my oldest friend. The one who held me when your dad walked out, when the bank foreclosed on the dream house. And now this, taking from me what little I have left. I stood, reaching for her arm, but she flinched away. It's not taking. It's me choosing for once. Tears tracked her face, silent indictments. Choosing hurts everyone, kiddo. It always does in this town. The argument spiraled, voices rising to crash against the walls, accusations of selfishness, pleas for understanding, until exhaustion claimed us, the truce a brittle ceasefire. I retreated to bed, the sheets cold, texting Margot. She knows everything. It's bad. Her reply. I'll come over tomorrow. We face this as three. But dawn brought escalation. A neighbor, emboldened by the holiday thaw and discretion, had knocked while I slept, her voice carrying through the door. Lorraine, honey, folks are talking. About Eliana and Margot. It's all over the prayer chain. Mom's response was muffled fury, the door slamming like punctuation. By noon Margot arrived, her car crunching gravel, face set in resolve. They met on the porch, words lost to the wind, but the outcome etched in postures. Mom's arms crossed, Margot's hands open in supplication. She found me in the kitchen later, eyes red-rimmed. She asked me to stay away. For your sake, for hers. The words landed like blows and I pulled her into the mudroom. Our embrace fierce against the uncertainty. Then we leave, I whispered, the idea blooming reckless. Portland. Together. She held me tighter, but doubt shadowed her nod. Maybe. But first we heal what's broken here. The days blurred into a limbo of avoidance. Mom at work, me at classes, Margot navigating listings with mechanical smiles. Whispers escalated to pointed silences at the store. A boycott brewing at the diner. The pressure cooker hissed and one evening it blew. Mom came home early, face ashen, collapsing at the table with a bottle of bourbon unearthed from the cupboard. They won't serve me anymore. She choked, glass trembling. Called me unnatural by association. My job, Eliana, 20 years gone in gossip. Guilt crashed over me, tidal and unforgiving, and I knelt beside her, taking the bottle away. This is on them, Mom. Not us. But her eyes, glassy with liquor and loss, fixed on me with raw accusation. It is on us. On you and her. Thinking your feelings trump everything. The venom stunned, but beneath it lay the truth we'd evaded. Love's cost in Willow Creek wasn't abstract. It was eviction notices, empty tip jars, fractured kinships. I called Margot that night, voice breaking over the line. We can't do this to her. Silence stretched, then her whisper. I know. But ending us. It ends me too. The call dropped into sobs on both ends, the distance between houses feeling oceanic. Winter deepened, the snow a shroud over our triads unraveling. Margot honored the space, her texts tapering to check-ins, but the void ached, a phantom limb. Mom and I rebuilt in fits, shared meals of canned soup, tentative talks about Dad's latest postcard from Reno, the town's slow poison. Yet the wound suppurated. She'd flinch at my touch, her trust collateral in our fallout. Spring teased with crocuses pushing through frost, a metaphor I clung to amid the stasis. One muddy afternoon, Margot appeared unannounced, her coat dusted with road salt, eyes hollowed by sleepless miles. "I can't stay away," she said, stepping inside despite Mom's absence at a job interview. We collided in the hallway, kisses hungry and haunted, migrating to my room where the bed creaked under our desperation. It was cathartic, a reclaiming amid the ruin, her body arching under mine, gasps echoing the river's thaw. But climax brought clarity's edge, and as we lay spent, she murmured, "This isn't fair to anyone. Least of all you." The admission hung, a sentence commuted, and we dressed in silence, the future's shape emerging stark, separation as mercy. April unfurled in Willow Creek with tentative greens, the river swelling from snowmelt, carving new paths through familiar banks, a silent admonition that nothing stayed fixed. Mom landed a part-time gig at the library, shelving books with the quiet dignity of survival, her interactions with me thawing into cautious normalcy. We'd cook together on Sundays, chopping onions side by side, the knife's rhythm a metronome for mending words. Apologies layered like phyllo, fragile but fortifying. "I pushed too hard," she'd admit, wiping her hands on a towel. "Forgot you're not the girl who needed protecting anymore." I'd nod, the ache easing incrementally, but Margot's absence loomed, a hollow in every room. She'd retreated to Bend for work, listings in the high desert a buffer against temptation, her emails sparse dispatches, photos of sagebrush sunsets, updates on her son's visit from Seattle. Each ping stirred the embers, a pull that warred with resolve, and I'd delete drafts of replies heavy with longing, choosing silence as the kinder cut. Yet dreams betrayed me, nights tangled in sheets, her phantom touch igniting sweats, waking to the dawn's indifferent light with a grief that bordered on physical. The town's malice simmered down, starved of fresh fuel, but scars lingered. Averted eyes at the market, Mom's forced smiles to old patrons. It forged in me a steely core. Classes resuming with renewed fervor. My thesis on resilient ecosystems now a personal manifesto. Portland beckoned in brochures, vibrant neighborhoods with pride flags snapping in the breeze. A city that wore its queerness like a badge, not a burden. I applied to transfer programs, the forms a declaration of intent, but shared none of it with Mom, fearing it would reopen wounds. May brought lilacs blooming riotous along fences, their scent a memory trigger, and with it, an unexpected olive branch. Margot's card arrived in the mail. No return address, just a pressed wildflower in script. "Thinking of you under these skies. Always am." The simplicity undid me, tears spotting the petal, and I drove to the old mill that evening half hoping, half dreading her shadow in the beams. She was there, leaning against a rusted girder, the river's murmur our chaperone. "I saw your light from the road," she lied softly, though we'd planned nothing. Our embrace was inevitable, a dam breaking. Kisses that tasted of pollen and parting, hands frantic under spring's mild sun. We made love on the blanket I'd brought instinctively, the planks warm from the day, her cries blending with the current's rush. It was valedictory, each caress a farewell etched in fervor, climax a cresting wave that left us adrift. Afterward, clothed but unarmored, we sat with feet dangling over the edge, stones skipping across the water. "Portland," I said, the word a bridge. "I'm going in the fall. For school." Her hand tightened in mine, knuckles whitening. "And me?" The question pierced, laden with the life she'd half-built here. Her son, the agency, the fragile peace with Lorraine. "Come with me," I urged, turning to face her, the plea raw. "We can start clean. No ghosts." She searched the horizon, tears welling like rain on the river. "I want to, Eliana. God, I do. But leaving. It means admitting defeat to everything here." The confession hung, a crossroads marked by mayflies dancing on the surface. We parted with a kiss that lingered, her car vanishing down the access road, leaving me with the echo of what might have been. June scorched the valley, heat waves shimmering off asphalt, mirroring the fever building in my veins. Mom noticed the restlessness, My pacing at night, the Portland pamphlets tucked under textbooks, and confronted me over iced tea on the porch, sweat beading on our glasses. "You're leaving, aren't you?" she said, not a question, her voice steady with foreknowledge. I nodded, the admission a release. For better opportunities. For me. She reached across the wicker table, her hand covering mine, calluses rough from years of gripping tight. "I get it now. Loving who you love. It's not a choice, it's a current. Just promise you'll visit. This town's got its claws, but you're stronger." Her blessing, hard one, cracked the final barrier, and I confided about Margot, the depth, the betrayal's shadow, the ache of potential. Mom listened without interruption, her face a landscape of processing storms, then sighed. "I lost her as a friend because I couldn't see past my hurt. Maybe it's time to mend that too." The olive branch extended to 3, tentative but profound. Emboldened, I reached out to Margot. A letter, old-fashioned, slipped under her door during a Bend errand. "Portland awaits. Room for 2. Let's rewrite the script." Days stretched taut, then her reply. A key taped inside an envelope, address scrawled below. "My cabin in Sisters. Call me. We talk." The drive was a pilgrimage, winding through passes where wildflowers rioted in roadside ditches, the radio crooning ballads of runaway hearts. The cabin stood weathered but welcoming, smoke curling from the chimney, her silhouette in the window like a beacon. She met me on the steps, pulling me inside without preamble, the door shutting out the world. "I sold the agency," she said, over tea steaming on the pine table, her eyes bright with terror and triumph. "Quit last week. My son's supportive, surprised, but okay. And Lorraine. She called. Said to take care of you or she'd hunt me down." Laughter bubbled between us, relief's effervescence, and we mapped futures on napkins. Shared apartment hunts in the Pearl District. Her real estate license transferable. My class is a foundation. But doubt lingered, a undercurrent. "What if the city's just a bigger cage?" she voiced, vulnerability cracking her poise. I drew her close, our foreheads touching. "Then we break it together. Like the forest, fire clears, regrowth follows." That night sealed the pact, the cabin's loft bed a haven of affirmation, her body yielding under mine with a trust unshadowed, moans harmonizing with the wind in the eaves. Dawn brought plans concrete. Lease viewings, packing lists, a goodbye dinner with Mom that promised catharsis. July's heat peaked, Willow Creek wilting under it, but our preparations bloomed. Mom hosted the farewell meal on the back patio, string lights twinkling against the dusk, grilled corn and ribs a ritual of release. Margot arrived with wine and wariness, but Mom enveloped her in a hug that lingered, whispering, "Forgive me for the walls I built." The trio dined under stars, emerging one by one, toasts clinking to new chapters, laughter tentative at first, then free stories retold without barbs, vulnerabilities shared like heirlooms. Yet beneath the harmony, fissures whispered. As plates cleared, Mom pulled me aside by the grill, her voice low. "She's good for you, El. But remember, love's not a escape hatch. It's work." I nodded, the wisdom settling deep, and rejoined them, the evening winding down with fireflies winking approval. August arrived freighted with finalities. Boxes stacked in the living room, my car loaded for the scout trip to Portland. Margot drove separately, her SUV trailing mine through the mountains, a caravan of courage. The city unfolded vibrant. Cobblestone streets thrumming with cyclists, murals exploding in color, the Willamettes gleam a promise of fluidity. We toured lofts in Alphabet District, walls exposed brick and windows framing bridges lit electric, each space a canvas for reinvention. One evening, post-viewing, we wandered the waterfront, food carts wafting spices, her arm linked in mine without fear. "This feels like breathing," she said, head on my shoulder, the crowd's indifference a balm. But as night deepened, a phone call shattered the reverie, her ex voice tinny over the line. "Son's asking questions. About why you're uprooting. Make sure it's not another whim." She hung up, face ashen, and we sat on a bench, the river lapping indifferent. Doubt crested then, her hand trembling in mine. What if I'm dragging him into my mess? What if this is just running, not choosing? The vulnerability raw, I held her through the unraveling, words a lifeline. "We're building Margot. Brick by brick. Whims don't survive storms, we have." The decision crystallized over the next days. A lease signed on a garden-level flat, keys exchanged with grins that masked the quakes. Back in Willow Creek for the final pack, Mom helped load the car, her embrace at parting fierce. Call weekly. And bring her Thanksgiving's open. Margot lingered on the porch, the two women sharing a nod heavy with history rewritten. The drive to Portland was euphoric, windows down, playlist of indie anthems blasting, the cascades of Farewell Sentinel, unpacking blurred into domesticity, bookshelves assembled amid laughter, kitchen stocked with shared whims. Nights were ours unapologetically, her body a geography I charted anew, whispers of forever murmured into skin. September's classes commenced, syllabi a roadmap to degrees and dreams, Margot commuting to viewings in the suburbs, her confidence blooming in the city's embrace. We navigated bumps, her son's wary visit, probing questions over brunch, my imposter syndrome in lecture halls filled with urban polish. But unity prevailed, date nights at dive bars where hands intertwined openly, walks in Forest Park where leaves crunched underfoot like affirmations. Yet October whispered warnings, a letter from Willow Creek arriving unbidden. Anonymous, typed venom town knows. Shame follows. Turn back. It landed like a stone in still water, ripples disturbing our equilibrium. Margot crumpled it, but the seed took root, manifesting in her hesitations, cancelled plans for work, silences that stretched like shadows. The confrontation brewed over a rainy weekend, thunder rumbling as we argued in the kitchen, takeout cooling untouched. You're pulling away, I accused, voice cracking. Because of that poison pen? She paced, rain streaking the window. It's not just that. It's everything. The son who texts mom, "Are you happy?" Like he doubts it. The calls from old clients whispering judgment. I thought Portland would erase it, but scars travel. The rawness gutted me and I crossed the tile, cupping her face. Then we faced them. Together. No more half measures. Tears mingled with the downpour outside. Our kiss a recommitment, leading to the bedroom where reconciliation burned fervent. Bodies colliding in urgent honesty, release a purging of fears. Winter in the city was a revelation. Holiday markets aglow with lights that rivaled stars. Our first tree trimmed with ornaments from thrift shops. Mom's visit a bridge crossed with grace. She met our world. Cafes buzzing with diversity, Margot's easy affection, and departed with a hug that held pride, not possession. You've got roots here now, she said at the airport. But Willow Creek's always home. Spring cycled back, marking a year since the 10th zipper, and with it stability solidified. Margot's business thrived in eco-friendly flips, my internship at a conservation nonprofit aligning passions. We hosted a solstice gathering, friends from classes mingling with her son, now thought to grins over craft beers. The circle closed gently, vulnerabilities aired like laundry in the breeze. But closure tempted fate. Summer brought a curve, a positive test strip on the bathroom counter, Margot's hand shaking as she showed me. From that one-night regret years ago? No, wait, it's mine. Early menopause dodged, but... Her voice trailed, joy and terror entwined. The news appended plans, ultrasounds charting a future expanded. Willow Creek's echo in the heartbeat's thrum. We navigated it hand in hand. Mom's excitement over video calls a bomb, the town's old ghosts fading to irrelevance. The birth in autumn was a miracle amid monitors. A daughter, tiny fists waving defiance, named River for the currents that carried us. The nursery's walls, painted soft sage in our Portland flat, absorbed the cries like a lullaby's counterpoint, River's wails piercing the thin veil of night. Margot paced the rocker, her silhouette haloed by the moon filtering through gauzy curtains, humming fragments of folk tunes from her Oregon childhood. Tunes I'd come to know as intimately as her size. At 6 weeks, our daughter was a tempest in miniature, colic twisting her features into echoes of the storms we'd weathered, and in those exhaustive hours, exhaustion forged us anew, bonds tempered in the forge of feedings and fevers. Motherhood reshaped Margot palpably. The woman who once navigated open houses with poised detachment, now cradled fragility with a reverence that humbled me. She'd wake before dawn, slipping from our bed to the rocker, her voice a soothing cadence against the city's distant hum. "She's got your eyes," she'd murmur when I stirred, passing the bundle warm and milk-scented, our fingers brushing in ritual exchange. Those touches, once electric with novelty, now hummed with deeper resonance. A partnership etched in diapers and doctor's visits, the chaos of love matured. Portland embraced us in layers. Playgroups in laurel-shaded parks where other queer parents swapped stories of chosen families, brunches at cafes with rainbow chalkboard specials, Margot's network expanding through client referrals that whispered of our blended life without flinching. Yet Willow Creek's tether tugged subtly. Mom's monthly visits, laden with care packages of homemade jams and tales of the town's incremental shifts. The new librarian pushing queer lit into the stacks, the prayer chain evolving from condemnation to curious silence. One crisp November afternoon, as leaves skittered across the Pearl District's cobblestones, Mom arrived unannounced, her rental car packed with autumn bounty. We walked the waterfront together, River bundled in a carrier against Margot's chest, the Willamette's breeze ruffling our scarves. "Never thought I'd see you like this," Mom said, linking arms with me, her gaze soft on the trio. "Content. Whole." Margot smiled, adjusting the strap and the ease between them. Once fractured porcelain, now gleamed seamless, a testament to time's quiet alchemy. But harmony harbored undercurrents. Margot's son, Theo, visited sporadically from Seattle, his engineering job a demanding anchor. At 24, he navigated our dynamic with the awkward grace of youth, cooing over River one moment, then probing Margot the next. "You seem settled. But is this it? The big leap?" His questions, innocent barbs, stirred old insecurities, and I'd catch her staring at the skyline after his departures, eyes distant as the bridges spanning the dark water. Winter's solstice brought a reckoning, snow dusting the city in rare white, transforming streets into storybook lanes. We hosted a gathering, friends from my nonprofit, Margot's colleagues, Theo flying down with his girlfriend in tow. The flat brimmed with laughter and mulled wine. Fairy lights twinkling over the tree, we'd felt ourselves in the Cascades, a nod to roots reclaimed. As guests milled, Theo pulled Margot aside in the kitchen, their voices low over slicing fruit. "Dad called," said the town still buzzing. "Folks asking if you're fixed now with the baby." The revelation sliced, her face paling, and though she waved it off, old noise, the evening's glow dimmed for me, the party's cheer a thin veneer over encroaching doubt. That night, after tucking River in, we lay awake, the radiator's hiss underscoring the silence. "Theo's just protective," she said, tracing my arm in the dark. "Like I was once." But I turned to face her, the street lamp casting bars across her features. "And you? Are you regretting the leap?" The question, long suppressed, erupted, born of sleepless nights watching her scroll old texts from Willow Creek contacts, her size heavier than the baby's. She propped on an elbow, eyes searching mine. "Never you, Eliana. But the life. It's louder than I bargained. The judgments echo even here." The admission cracked the facade and words tumbled. My fears of inadequacy as partner and parent, her confessions of imposter syndrome in this vibrant chaos. The baby a joy shadowed by the ghosts of choices unchallenged. It wasn't betrayal anew, but a fracture in the armor we'd forged, revealing the raw underbelly of sustainability. We made love then, urgent and affirming, bodies reaffirming vows whispered in sweat-slicked sheets, climax a bridge over the chasm. Spring thawed the impasse, River's first smiles a daily sacrament, her gurgles pulling us from introspection's mire. Margot enrolled in a parenting circle for queer families, emerging with stories of shared navigations, blended kinships thriving amid societal eddies. I advocated at work for inclusive conservation policies, drawing parallels to personal ecologies, how communities like habitats adapt or perish. Mom's letters arrived weekly now, inked with pride. Heard the library's hosting a Pride Read. Wish I could see you read there someday. Yet the past circled like a hawk, alighting in summer's heat. A client from Willow Creek booked Margot for a Portland consult, a cabin flip with regional ties, and the meeting unearthed specters. Over dinner that night, she recounted the exchange, the man's sidelong probes. "Heard you left quite the stir back home. Family approve." His smirk a relic of small-town barbs. It reignited the old blaze, and she slammed her fork down, wine sloshing. "I thought distance killed it, but it's in the air we breathe. Even here." The fight that followed was inevitable, voices rising over River's monitor static, accusations flying like sparks. My perceived dismissal of her scars, her withdrawal into protective shells. "You act like Portland fixed us," she hurled, tears streaking. "But I'm still the woman who broke her best friend's heart." I countered with my own wounds, the tense innocence lost, the years of hiding that scarred me deepest. The door to the bedroom slammed, a echo of that kitchen night in Willow Creek, and I slept on the couch, the city's night symphony a mocking serenade. Dawn brought penitence. She found me there, coffee brewing, River cooing from her playpen. I hate fighting you, she said, sinking beside me, head on my shoulder. It's like fighting myself. We talked then truly, unpacking the baggage we dragged from Oregon's shadows, vowing therapy sessions to fortify the frame. The sessions in a sunlit office overlooking the hills, peeled layers, her divorce's lingering shame, my internalized town voices deeming me unworthy. Progress was incremental, tears and triumphs, but each disclosure drew us closer, love refined in the crucible. Fall deepened the growth, River's first steps tottering across the living room rug, her chubby hands pulling us into family piles of giggles. Theo proposed during a visit, his girlfriend beaming, and Margot's toast at the engagement dinner held unshadowed joy. To leaps that land soft. Mom relocated partially, renting a studio near the college for winter quarters, her presence a steadying force, babysitting evenings regaling us with diner lore updated for progress. But climax brewed in December's chill, a callback to origins. An invitation arrived, Willow Creek's Winter Festival, a olive branch from the chamber, reconnect with roots. All welcome. Mom urged acceptance. Show them you're unbreakable. Margot hesitated, the pull of proof warring with peril, but I championed it. Let's go as we are. Tent and all. The drive mirrored our first escape, River strapped in the back, babbling at passing pines. Willow Creek greeted with tentative warmth. String lights on Main, booths hawking cider and crafts. Faces turned, whispers rippling, but Mom's arm linked with Margot's, River on my hip, formed a phalanx unassailable. The mayor approached, handshake firm. Glad you're thriving. Town's changing, slow but sure. Old acquaintances nodded, some with genuine smiles, others averted, but the air lacked outright venom, progress's quiet tide. That night in a motel on the outskirts, echoing the camping trip's intimacy, we made love with the window cracked to the crisp air, River asleep in the adjoining room. It was reverent, a reclamation, her body arching in the lamplight, whispers of gratitude mingling with gasps. We survived, she breathed post-climax, fingers laced in mine. More than that, we bloomed. Return to Portland solidified the victory, the festival a marker of transcendence. Yet true tantrum came subtly in the New Year's hush. Margot's agency offered a promotion, regional director, requiring travel to branches, including Willow Creek liaisons. The irony stung dredging doubts. What if the road pulls me back? She confided over breakfast, River smearing oatmeal. I set down my mug, resolve firm. Then we adapt. Like always. The betrayal's shadow emerged not in infidelity, but in temptation's guise. A colleague in Bend, sharp-suited and sympathetic during a late-night pitch, his compliments laced with subtext. She confessed over wine one evening, guilt carving her features. Nothing happened, Eliana. But the attention. It whispered of easier paths. The admission gutted, a echo of my deepest fear, abandonment's specter, and I stormed out into the drizzle, walking bridges until legs ached, the river below a mirror of turmoil. Reconciliation spanned days. Space for reflection, then a raw session with our therapist, words weaponized then sheathed. Trust isn't blind, she said, holding my hands across the coffee table. It's chosen daily. I forgave, not erasing the scar, but honoring the honesty that preserved us. River's laughter bridged the gap, her toddling steps a reminder of stakes elevated. By spring's renewal, the crisis catalyzed growth, boundaries redrawn, communications sharpened, love's labor made manifest in intentionality. Mom's full move to Portland cemented the circle, her apartment blocks away, Sunday dinners a tradition reborn. Willow Creek faded to annual visits, a chapter closed with grace. Summer's zenith crowned our fourth year in Portland with unseasonal rains, the city streets gleaming under street lamps like veins of silver, River's laughter a counterpoint to the patter on our balcony garden. At 3, she was a whirlwind of curiosity, chasing pigeons in Washington Park, her curls wild as the rhododendrons, demanding stories of the tented venture that birthed our legend. We'd embellish for her delight. Margot as the stormbringer, me as the secret keeper, the zipper a portal to forever. Those tales wove our history into myth, sanitizing the thorns for her tender ears, but in private glances, Margot and I acknowledged the blood they'd drawn. The promotion had stretched Margot thin, Overnight stays in Eugene, client dinners in Salem, but we'd architected safeguards. Nightly calls tracing the day's contours, weekends reclaimed for rose gardens and river picnics. Theo's wedding in Seattle marked a milestone. Us walking him down the aisle in coordinated blues, river flower girl in a froth of tulle. Mom seated front row, dabbed tears with a hanky embroidered from her Willow Creek sewing circle, whispering to me, "Full circle, kiddo. From fractures to this." Post-vows at the reception overlooking the sound, Margot pulled me onto the dance floor, our sways sinking to a slow jazz riff, river twirling nearby with Theo's wife. "Remember the fair?" she murmured, breath warm on my neck. "The shadows, the risk." I nodded, chin on her shoulder. And now? No shadows left. The optimism rang true, forged in fires we'd quenched, but life's underbelly stirred even in idols. A routine mammogram for Margot yielding a shadow on the scan, the word biopsy dropping like a stone in our sun-dappled kitchen. The wait stretched eternal, days bleeding into consultations, her hand gripping mine in sterile waiting rooms, River's oblivious energy a stark contrast. Early stage, the doctor pronounced finally, voice clinical over printouts, treatable with surgery, radiation. Relief crashed, mingled with terror's aftertaste, and we emerged into the autumn light changed, prioritizing presence, Margot's treatment slotted around River's preschool, my work flexing to cover gaps. The surgery in November was a blur of pre-op jitters and post-op vigils, her room overlooking the hospital's atrium where leaves swirled in eddies. I read to her from dog-eared novels, lesbian classics smuggled from the shelves, voices low to evade nurses' ears, while Mom wrangled River in the cafeteria, bribing with Jell-O cups. Recovery was gritty. Margot's frame thinned, her laughter fainter, but our rituals anchored. Tea steeps with ginger for nausea, midnight confessions when pain woke her. "Don't let this dim us," she'd say, fingers weak in mine. "Promise you'll rage for joy if I can't." The vow bound me through radiation's toll, her skin mapping burns like battle scars, our lovemaking paused for healing's sake, intimacy shifting to tender proxies. Baths drawn scented with lavender, stories spun of futures unmarred. Willow Creek sent a card, collective now, strength from the roots. The irony softened the edges, progress is proof in ink. By winter's thaw, remissions all clear rang like bells. Margot's hair regrowing in defiant waves, her step reclaiming vigor. We celebrated with a Cascades getaway, echoing the origin tent, but in a yurt strung with lights, River roasting marshmallows under stars. There by the fire ring she proposed renewal. Rings exchanged anew, simple bands etched with river motifs. "To the mistakes that weren't," she toasted, eyes glistening. I slipped mine on, the metal cool promise, and pulled her close, River's giggles the chorus. Spring bloomed triumphant, River's 4th birthday a park fete with rainbow cakes and face paint. Friends spanning our mosaic. Queer collectives, non-profit allies, Mom's book club transplants. Theo announced a pregnancy, his call crackling with excitement. Aunt Margot's turn to spoil. The lineage extended. Echoes of our gambles paying forward in uncharted kin. Yet the narrative's arc demanded one final bend. A Willow Creek summons, not crisis but invitation. The town library's inaugural Pride reading series, Mom curating, her voice over the line steady. "Read your piece, Elle. About the tint. Show them the woman you became." Hesitation gripped. Margot's hand on my knee during the debate grounded me. "Go. Close the loop." The drive homeward was laden. River strapped in with snacks, Margot's playlist of empowerment anthems buffering nerves. Willow Creek unfolded altered. Pride flags on lampposts, the diner boasting all welcome signs. The library buzzed, folding chairs filled with familiar faces. Some grayed, others softened. Mom beaming from the podium. I took the mic, voice initial quiver steadying into story. The zippers rasped, the storm's confession, the love that defied the town's script. Gasps rippled, then applause, Tessa in the front row nodding through tears. Post-reading, Margot enveloped me in the vestibule, her whisper fierce. "You owned it. All of it." Mom joined, trio embrace including River's tug for attention. The circle complete. Over coffee at the diner, service prompt, smiles genuine, we debriefed, the town's evolution a mirror to our own. Slow burns yielding to steady flames. Return to Portland sealed the liberation. The reading a catharsis expunging residual chains. Life unfolded in rhythms refined. River's kindergarten jitters met with schoolgate handholds. Margot's firm expanding to queer-friendly developments, my promotion to lead ecologist advocating for inclusive wilds. Mom dated, a librarian from the series Gentle and Bookish. Their courtship a parallel bloom, dinners shared with tales of second chances. Years layered like sediment. River at 8 fierce in soccer cleats, demanding tense stories, evolved with her age nuances of struggle triumphs of truth. Theo's twins arrived, playdates chaotic with cousins, Margot's grandma role a delight in spoiling. Willow Creek receded to biennial visits, a benevolent memory. The original tent preserved in our garage, zipper rusted but symbolic. One golden September eve as sun dipped behind the West Hills, we camped in our backyard. Yurt pitched on the postage lawn, River zipped in with friends, Margot and I stealing the master tent. The city's hum distant, stars pricking the urban veil. Her hand found mine in the dark. More than a mistake, she murmured, echoing the title of our saga. The spark that lit everything. I turned, kiss sealing the sentiment, bodies entwining in familiar dance. Tender now, etched with time's grace, climaxes quiet waves of gratitude. Dawn broke with birdsong, rivers unzip heralding pancakes, the family tableau a living testament. From forbidden tent to boundless home. In the end our story whispered a truth elemental as rivers carving stone. Love in its truest vein defies the dams of society, eroding barriers to flow free. It demands reckoning with betrayals born and inflicted, honors the human ache for belonging amid divides of class, creed, and kin. Margot and I, once shadows in a storm, emerged architects of our expanse, teaching river and beyond. Mistakes aren't endpoints but portals to the profound. In America's vast tapestry where small towns cradle big dreams and cities harbor hidden hurts, we chose the weave that held, flawed, fierce forever.